Okay, everybody, this is Krishna Vedula from India, representing IUCE. Welcome to our global webinar in collaboration with IFES, GEDC, and IUCE. We have a truly global webinar for you. We have, we have two young ladies from Ghana and Morocco who are the presenters today, and I'll just briefly introduce them. Aisha is, of course, the head of global education programs for AWS training and certification. Everybody knows what AWS stands for, right? And Lauren Muller is the EMEA director and Coursera for campus executive sponsor. And just briefly, Aisha is, as I said, the training and certification global ambassador for cloud career training programs for America, North, Central, and South America. AWS STEM advocate. She has 25 years of experience. Wow, you don't look that old. Her focus is on increasing the number of women and minorities in engineering. Aisha currently works for AWS, Amazon Web Services, as a training and certification global ambassador for cloud career training programs, America. Lauren Muller is the manager, FCMI, EMEA, and director in Coursera for campus executive sponsor, Coursera. Lauren is the former CEO for Group Holdings of the University of Applied Sciences, Europe, with campus locations across Germany. Lauren is a chartered manager and is a fellow of the Chartered Management Institute. So two very distinguished young women with us. Thank you so much for joining us. Real pleasure. And I'm going to disappear and let you do your thing. All right. Take care. Good luck.
Thank you so much for having us.
Aisha, do you want to start with sharing a little bit more about yourself?
Sure. So as Hans gave an introduction about myself, just to do a little bit of a deeper dive. So within the role that I have at AWS in training and certification, our overall goal is to really be able to train 29 million people by 2025. And it's a huge task, but we want to be able to really help to close the IT skills gap, not only for our benefit as Amazon and AWS, but for the benefit of all our customers, partners, and employers, to be able to have that social impact, to be able to close that skills gap. So being able to provide training and skills that people need are what we're in the business of doing as well within training and certification. So I'm very happy to be here with Laura to really be able to have this conversation and talk about, you know, some of the programs that we have within our cloud career training programs. I have the awesome opportunity right now to be in Ghana, working with an NGO called Basics International, where we are actually bringing one of our education programs into one of the most impoverished villages within Ghana, which is Choko, and bring that cloud technology and education and those skills that these students need to help prepare them so that they know that they can do anything in this world, and just making sure that they have those foundational skills. So I'm very happy to be here and to have this conversation and discussion with Laura.
Likewise, Aisha, and it sounds like a really impactful initiative. I share your affinity with progress. My career has been in higher education throughout, and I'm very fortunate that I get to work on a lot of high impact initiatives. In my previous role as the CEO of the European University of Applied Sciences Europe, I was very much involved with faculty, with content creation, with launching of degree programs. And in my role now, I work with vice chancellors and ministers to kind of really align curriculum to national development goals, to empower faculty for them to be able to teach things that they would love to include, but don't have the time to or don't have the resource to, because, you know, they have extremely busy schedules themselves. And often they would prefer to focus on more high impact research or other areas. So yeah, a little bit about us. I'm currently in Morocco, you're in Ghana, so I think we're on similar time zones. And I'd like to appeal to everybody that's joined the webinar that you could please engage with the chat. We don't get to see you. We wish we could. It's no substitute to being in person, but if you could be proactive in the chat, it will give us a sense of what you're interested in, or we could respond to questions for you. So without further ado, I guess we will commence with the deck.
Yeah, so, just talking a little bit about industry in that context to review the agenda, we'll have more conversation just about, some best practices in terms of, higher education institutions, and then just more conversation, and Lawrey will go into more detail in terms of shaping the future of learning and work. And as Laura mentioned, please feel free to engage with us, ask questions, and we will definitely, make time for Q&A at the end. So as we talk about changing the higher education landscape, we all know that, when we're looking at student recruitment, it is definitely pivotal right now for students to really be competitive. It is, when we look at, education needs, supplemental education is definitely on the rise, and companies are really saying that they really need students to have more real world applications. And that's really going to be helpful for students as they think about how to be more competitive. And the way to really become more competitive is for students to get additional training, additional certification. So as students really think about how they're going to be more competitive, it really is, up to their institutions as well to help them and thinking about how they're able to do that. When they're looking at universities, what are some other things that are being offered, and what are some non-traditional things that universities are really doing? And so, Lauren, what has been kind of your experience in what you're doing within Coursera along these lines?
Yeah, so the data is really, really clear that the return on investment, both when it comes to time, financially, commitment, the opportunity cost of going to university is ever more present in learners' minds. And they're acutely aware, as you can see, 92% of international students said employability skills was very important or important to them. They're acutely aware of this choice. Now, that doesn't diminish the value of an academic degree, academic freedom, academic integrity, the dedication and commitment that goes into research and PhDs, but it does indicate that students are aware that they need to be able to progress in their earnings, in their career, in their trajectory. And this is firmly linked to the economic needs of international nations, and where the gaps and where the growth trajectories are. And as we know, when it comes to cloud, this is such a critically important emergent area. So I think some universities underestimate how important this messaging is, but it is actually firmly linked to student retention, the student acquisition costs. The majority of attrition happens in the first year of a degree. So keeping students engaged and feeling connected to what they're learning, you talked about it already, Aisha, with this applied learning track, and making them feel that they have access to a fully robust utilitarian education as well as a academically rewarding one, is something that some universities are getting a grip of and getting on board early with, and others are still kind of in a more ideological conversation around. But I think there's generally a recognition that this is an important part of future-proofing the curriculum.
Right, absolutely. I couldn't agree more. I mean, universities are doing a great job, but they definitely can do better. And, I will say that, in my previous role, when I was working with the American Society for Mechanical Engineers, I worked with faculty. So I worked with, all the mechanical engineer department heads, and that was a huge question in terms of what they really could present to students to really make them more competitive, right? And so as you mentioned, Laura, as well, what we really found is that students need more of that design, build, kind of spine and more of that first half, right? Those first 2 years are very pivotal. So students are getting a lot of programs. They're really engaged in high school. They have FIRST Robotics and many of these other competitions that really, speak to them getting their hands on technology. And then they get to university and it's more theory, right? They're not getting as much of that. Much of the senior design and design projects are in the last 2 years. So, you know, we really need to think more about how we get that more into the first half so that we can eliminate a lot of the, you know, just kind of drop off that really does happen within that first 2 years.
And that formative assessment part. So, I mean, universities can retain the summative assessments, but the formative assessment creates a real opportunity to integrate applied learning and to leverage, you know, the technology that we have to enable students to take a myriad of software. You know, the speed of technology and how new these things evolved, but the technology exists to empower them to be able to do that. And it's also well linked to personalized learning as well.
Absolutely. So one of the things that, you know, in addition to that, we know is that industry is definitely taking note, right? We do hear from industry in terms of what their needs are and what they're looking for, right? And they really do need students who are coming out of college, you know, getting into many of these entry-level roles to have more of a real world view, right? A real world, more hands-on application. So students can learn AI and machine learning. They can learn that theory, but when they actually get into those roles, what we're hearing from industry is that they're really not able to kind of put some of those connections together because many of them may have never had the experiences of that hands-on application. And so because of that, you know, we really need to make sure that there are mechanisms that are really set in place to really help universities help students, right? And so that's why, you know, within AWS being in training and certification, there are definitely education programs that we have to really help higher education institutions, you know, and faculty be able to do that, bring that experience within our area, you know, specifically cloud computing and those cloud skills into the classroom, and we help them with curriculum. And so this is some feedback, you know, that we're getting from industry who are really trying to understand, you know, how they can really get the best out of these students.
Yeah, and it echoes the conversations I have. I think there are non-traditional routes to acquiring these applied skills that are being vigorously, students are aware of as well, but there is definitely a complementary role they can play within higher education provision. I've been in some interesting thought leadership forums where there's been the conversation about the skillification as opposed to, you know, the pure academic. For me, it's a false dichotomy. At the end of the day, these things are complementary, and you can do them. There's a dual way of doing them together in everybody's collective interest.
Right. And as we think about, you know, these skills that are needed, you know, and you talked about, you know, kind of non-traditional, you know, looking at some of the non-traditional routes, you know, will bring a lot of non-traditional learners as well, right? Which includes more diverse learners. And so even thinking outside of just your 4-year degree, right? Looking at community colleges, looking at people who may have not gone to any college but are really looking to kind of get these skills or reskill or upskill themselves. You know, industry really is taking more of a look at those learners, because not only is it something that they need, but it also brings a lot of diversity in terms of the non-traditional career paths. And industry realizes that for some of those, that's where they're going to get more of that kind of real world hands-on experience from those learners than just those who are coming out of, you know, 4-year degree programs. And so they're also taking note on that. And that's why it's really important for us to make sure that we're helping institutions be able to provide this hands-on, you know, design thinking where they're able to touch and feel things, as opposed to only having that theory in the first 2 years.
Yeah, absolutely. The facilitation of widening participation from diverse learner groups, mature students, etc., but also empowering them with the practitioner hands-on experience, empowering all the learners within a campus environment to be able to utilize the knowledge that they have through diverse systems and platforms.
Right. And then the last thing that I'll say as well is that, we also can take note and see that, industry is also looking at, leaning towards, not even focusing on, having a degree, but it's really going to be about those skills that's really going to be important. So they're definitely taking note as to, how to look at this to really get the best, employees who actually understand what it is that they need. And we're here to help our customers and clients within industry be able to do that. So we're going to continue with just looking at cloud engineering and the market of really untapped potential. So we talked a little bit about that as well, just in terms of, all of these learners who are out there and some of the shortages. Again, there definitely is, we need to really help to close this IT gap, right? And if you look at the data, you can clearly see all of the jobs that are really unfilled in IT within the United States. And then you can look at, as we look down, those numbers increase as we look at other countries, looking at India and looking at China. And so this really is a global shortage that is happening, not just in one particular country. So within my role, as a global ambassador, to be able to understand what's happening in one of our geos and looking at some of the other geos to really be able to share best practices as to how we can all work together to be able to, kind of shorten and shrink this IT skills gap. And so we're able to really be able to do that through many of our programs, with making them accessible, with having some on-demand cloud curriculum. And I'll go into talking about some of, what those programs are, but that really is our overall goal. And again, not just for AWS, but that we can help all of our customers, clients, and partners.
Yeah, the data is really striking. Do you want to move to the next slide?
Yeah, so Lauren, if you want to, really pick up here in terms of, higher education and what they're really kind of struggling with to keep up on some of the demand.
Yeah, I mean, you can look across the media, you can look at any interview with sections of industry. The commentary is very clear, okay, that, skills have evolved so quickly, and the skills demand, the skills gap, the speed of technological change is something that the traditional institutions of higher education are quite process driven. They're typically consensus decision-making institutions. And even the setup and creation of degree programs, the time it takes to source material, to validate those, the quality assurance and governance frameworks that they need to go to. Agility is not typically the word of choice, although very relevant to cloud, but agile as a concept may not have always been seen to be something that you typically associate with curriculum development in higher education institutions. And there's a huge amount of work and process and admin burden on faculty that goes into all of that. So to structure degree programs in a way that allows you to pivot, that you validate them and you build them out in a way that actually is designed to give agility, to empower faculty and allow the freedom to select and supplement and complement in the way they always have with traditional learning media, be it textbooks, be it academic journals, be it video content, but now to be able to use and leverage micro-credentials or industry content or practitioner tools. For example, at Coursera, we have Coursera Labs, which I will speak about later, which is a dual applied learning environment where you have an instructor who can learn the application of software at scale. This is something a typical faculty, be it dean, be it whoever is delivering the content, is not going to necessarily have time to do and recreate at scale as new software and technologies come out. So it's really an extension of the traditional transnational educational partnerships that are very much normalized in education and highly valued. But through the medium of technology, and there are some, and I don't shy away from any controversial comments in saying this, but there are some who are maybe a little bit protectionist in the idea of why would I want to use content, or why is it necessary to collaborate? And often that's well intended, you know, it's the preservation of the academic program, for example, and the role of universities, which are critical. But actually, it's less vulnerable to that. It's really about complementary, supplementing, enhancement, and shared common goals, and so solving for both economic challenges as a national scale, but students' expectations of the kind of careers they need to be prepared for. Often many of them will not have experience, so building up a dossier and a portfolio that demonstrates the skills they've acquired, that they know how to apply them, that they're familiar, is going to be really important in their hiring journey.
Yeah, I mean, you just really touched on so many things with the just burden that faculty have. You know, there's so many requirements now, so many credits that students are required to have, and faculty are really just trying to keep up. So they really don't have a lot of time to be able to create many of these new things. So being able to really help them so that they can have curriculum that they can really just kind of plug and play, right? And what we do know as well is that, you know, the majority of faculty, you know, have not really worked in industry, right? So many times they're also looking for things that will really help them be able to make those connections to students so that they're getting that real world application. So, you know, at AWS, you know, as you mentioned, you know, for Coursera, we do have programs that we, you know, really try to help really empower, you know, higher education institutions, you know, and faculty to really be able to help just prepare them, right, and give them curriculum that they can literally plug and play. And it really is industry recognized. So not only, you know, within AWS, but all companies will really recognize, you know, our curriculum, our certifications, and this will really help, you know, students understand more about careers, you know, in the cloud. And so our program, AWS Academy, really does that. We really have this cloud curriculum that we give to faculty and work with them to really be able to kind of customize it to what they're actually doing in their classroom, to take some of that burden, you know, away from them, because we do know that it is really a struggle to keep up with all that's going on within technology. And so because it's so, you know, rapidly paced, you know, we as employers really have to be able to help and understand what the demands are, to be able to relay that so that they can actually have many of those outcomes and have their students prepared when they actually go out into institutions. So, you know, the fact that we're able to do this, our curriculum, you know, educators really are able to really kind of stay in the forefront of what is going on in terms of innovation, you know, with the cloud, and then they can really be able to continue to equip, you know, right, their students with the skills that they need to really be able to get hired at any of the, you know, kind of fast growing industries, no matter what company it's with.
And it's that information loop, isn't it? I mean, staying connected to the applied world and to industry. I think universities often have, you know, really enhanced initiatives where they do engage with employers. But when it comes to the curriculum creation, how many can say they're truly benchmarking skills proficiency? They're truly able to say within what stage in a trajectory of a career aspiration a student is. And, you know, with technologies like skill sets and things that we have available, you know, a student can say where their aspirations are, and they can measure how they're progressing, and they can see what areas, be it, you know, the softer skills that are integral to their longer term career steps, be it things like emotional resilience and maturity, or proper tech competencies.
Yes. Exactly.
Being able to, for a student to be able to have that enhanced insight to where they are in that learning journey is something to be embraced.
Right, absolutely. And just, one additional thing is that, with these, the curriculum and the skills that they're acquiring, it also, presents an opportunity for them to also get, certifications, right? And we do help with that with many of the certifications that, AWS has and, many other employers do recognize. So along with that curriculum is the ability to get certified. And that's certifications that they're able to attain is really going to help to make the students be a little bit more competitive, especially in this day and age that we're in right now.
Yeah, absolutely. And I talked about be it the connection, the infrastructure. Obviously I come from an organization with over 100 million learners on a platform that has arms that work with governments. We have Coursera for business, Coursera for government, Coursera for campus, and the traditional consumer platform. Over 250 industry and educator partners that are sourcing content and providing. Obviously, we work very closely with AWS as a partner. That information system, that data, and most organizations I think have realized how important data is, ethically, measurably, insight-wise, and all. This infrastructure is really quite unique in terms of how it feeds into itself and how universities can leverage all of that data point to kind of make more informed decisions or guided decisions, or even just debate different perspectives from the view of a different information collation.
Right, absolutely. And, similarly with, this global learning, ecosystem, AWS, we're happy that, we have partners like Coursera to be able to make sure that we're providing curriculum and working together, because that's what it's really all about. So that's why, again, it's not only for our benefit as AWS, but we want to make sure that we're really helping learners at any level to meet them where they are, for them to really be able to, again, get these foundational skills. Because I think that's the other key, is that it's not necessarily that we're really trying to push all learners into a specific tech area, right? A specific tech field. But with having the foundation and some of these cloud skills, having them understand that they can really take these skills and take them anywhere, right? Into any industry. And that's what is also really important. And that is going, preparing them, whether we're reaching down to K to 12, all the way up to adult learners who just want to learn more about the cloud, right? For them to understand it isn't one specific area, but that these skills are really a thread, right? Through any industry, through anything that they want to do. Everyone is using technology. Everyone is using computers, down to if you go into a fast food restaurant, right? They're using computers. So just the ability to be able to understand and have that foundation is going to be helpful, as we look at this learning ecosystem.
Yeah, the interconnectedness and the intertransferability of having at least a certain level of technological awareness. I mean, it's the same with how you work with data teams. The data teams are the specialists, but ultimately it's people in other roles that need to know how to work with those functional roles and how to leverage the resources that a business have, be it CRMs or data spaces or warehouses, data warehouses. And I think sometimes with universities, you're representing, here we're focused on engineering, and obviously it's such a critical and important sector, but many engineering graduates also go into different roles, into banking, into different industries, and them having an awareness of different cloud solutions and the application and the skills and the methodologies, it translates into different sectors, different careers, different domains.
Okay, Ash,
Absolutely.
Aisha, and Lauren, we have a bunch of chat questions, comments, and questions. I can read them out, and that might prompt a little more.
I was hoping people were engaged.
Want to get started on that? Okay. Okay, so I'm going to start with the first one that came in almost right away when you started. He says, Shantanu Singh Parmar says, hi, I'm just completely, I've just completed high school and I'm on summer break. I've discovered Coursera during this break and I'm just having a great time learning new things every day, be it courses on ML or AI or Python or computational thinking. I'm having a relatively easy time actually doing these courses and find the subjects interesting. What I want to ask is that will companies giving internships during college consider these certified courses, or do I have to redo them after like 2 years when I'm in a college senior year or something?
Aisha, do you want to respond from an industry perspective? I can certainly take it from a Coursera side.
We would absolutely not want you to redo anything. And anything that you can do to really, again, make yourself a little more competitive, any courses that you've taken, any certification will definitely be recognized. And I can say that, within Amazon AWS, we definitely have internships, for college students, and we do recognize additional training and skills that they have acquired. So I would say you do not need to retake any courses that you've actually done already. And, kudos to you for really, taking that extra initiative and taking these courses now. Great job.
Yeah, I absolutely second that. And one thing I think is this culture of lifelong learning, again, across the brains. It doesn't matter if you're in accountancy or you're in law, there's always a continuing professional development necessity. I'm really fortunate that within Coursera, they really extend that opportunity to us. So we're constantly encouraged and supported to continue. So if you're building that muscle now, and you're recognizing that I can, continue to enhance my my educational journey through short form content, from applied content, you're building a muscle that you'll need to apply more and more in future. All of us will. It's just the speed of information flow and the opportunity that comes with it.
Yeah, absolutely. Just to add a little bit to that, in terms of upskilling, reskilling, that is so important. And, just the same, it's important to continue and just be a lifelong learner.
Okay, from Victor Coltagane, what are some of the practical application classes that Coursera can offer in order to supplement what theory learning that universities typically offer to prepare students for industry after graduating?
Yeah. Aisha, do you want to go first?
Well, so I'll say, within our Educate program, we do have AWS Educate. It is on demand, self-paced. And so there are many courses that are within there, in terms of, like, what is the cloud? It starts very basic, but wherever your level is, you can find a path that is right for you. So there are courses in there in terms of machine learning, artificial intelligence, and it really does also let you have the ability to go into the AWS management console and be able to kind of go through the labs, and you will actually be in there. And so we've made it even easier for learners as young as 13 years old to actually get into the console, where you can just, put in your email address, and you don't need to create necessarily an Amazon account. And that way you will be building up skills. There are hours and hours and hours of courses that you can take to continue to, build upon the skills that you have, learn new skills, and grow with these skills that you're going to be learning.
Okay.
Yeah,
keep going.
Also on my side, you can integrate guided projects, which I explained earlier would give you, within Coursera Labs, we have the labs features and we have the guided projects, which is sort of 1 to 2 hour short form, learn a particular software at different levels of application. Or you can take parts of courses and integrate them within degree modules, for example, Python from Michigan, or we have our Careers Academy as well, which is industry credentials, preparation for entry-level roles. So for example, you might want to take a social media from Meta and integrate that into a marketing degree. We have all of our AWS partner developed courses as well. So really the selection is broad and robust, and it's really about
endless.
Yeah, endless, let's say, and tailoring it to how you're designing your curriculum, what you want to achieve as the owner of that curriculum, as the faculty in charge of a program. What is your unique brand? What do you want to differentiate? What are your KPIs as an organization? How can we empower you to focus on the stuff that you're probably more interested in teaching and delivering, rather than the generic, mundane, existing stuff that may be out there? You can focus on your high impact, high value, and you can leverage external tools and resources to complement your programs within that.
Okay, next question. How can we this is from Islam El Gadawi. Hello, how can we bring AWS hands-on training to universities? Is there free training programs available to join? What are the protocols for cooperation with universities?
Hi, thank you for asking. So I'll kind of jump in there. So as I mentioned earlier, we have our AWS Educate program. It is very simple. If you just go to the search and look up AWS Educate, again, all of our education programs are free to the learner. And so we really are making sure that we're eliminating many barriers for learners and in terms of how they actually get access. So we want to work with institutions, we want to work with faculty to be able to help. And as Laura mentioned, really be able to help, faculty really customize what it is that they're doing within their courses and their curriculum, and then kind of couple that with what we have to offer within cloud and cloud computing. So there you can, again, go to AWS Academy and just look, and you will be able to get all of the information in terms of how to become an institutional partner. We really do partner with institutions. And so we want to really partner with you, your institution. So please feel free to go get that information, and you will find everything that's necessary to get started. Laura?
Laura? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think you answered so comprehensively. In terms of content that's available, so Coursera provided a lot of initiatives over the pandemic. We had different programs that were available to business, programs that were available to use of universities, to straddle that really challenging time. And I mean, compliments faculty globally who were able to step up and continue delivering education in just the most unprecedented circumstances. And learning didn't stop, and with collective efforts around the world, somehow it seems the worst has gone through. Not cursing anything, touching wood. But some are thinking about traditional returns to education models, but actually most of those traditional education models have evolved, and it's not going to go backwards. It's not going to be just purely face-to-face teaching. There's always going to be a need to offer more flexible, more hybrid solutions, because that's the expectation of learners now. And with remote working and everything else. So how we work with institutions, as I said, we look at your KPIs, what you're trying to achieve, who your learner audience is, and then we look at how we can support those KPIs so you have a very clear return on investment. And our partnerships are typically multi-year and for the longer term. And it is really about those collective success metrics. So yes, there are some initiatives that can support as a temporary measure, but this is really essential necessity transformation that's taking place in HE. What is of much more longer term value is to align on an ROI model that's sustainable, and that's through growing enrollments, increasing student retention, preventing attrition, getting better employability, all of these things that helps universities be more financially viable.
Great. Next is just a thank you from Fazlus Satter, saying that from Bangladesh, saying thanks for organizing this event. I think it's the demand of the time. Next is a comment from Dennis Sebugwawo. I hope I pronounced it right. Many universities the world over are now moving away from teacher-centered teaching to learning to student-centered teaching and learning. When the student is at the center of the teaching and learning process, they get 30% theory, 70% practical skills through innovative projects and tasks given to them. The labor job market industry normally prefers skilled graduates to theory-loaded graduates. So you just want to comment, either of you, on Dennis's comment?
Yeah,
I mean,
I'll jump in first and just say that, you know, that statement is, you know, very spot on. You know, one of the things, like I mentioned earlier, is that, you know, students, especially when you're in four-year degree programs, you're getting all of that theory, which is great, but you're missing many times students are really missing that real world kind of hands-on application. And many faculty have not worked in industry, right? So there is a little bit of a disconnect, and that's what, you know, we're seeing as well in terms of, you know, institutions and industry. And so we really want to help to be able to close that by really being able to bring more of that real world hands-on application into the classroom, and that is through the curriculum and working with the faculty to be able to bring that so that they can provide that. And that's only going to help students in terms of their outcomes, and then it will then impact industry because they will get, you know, just more viable candidates when they're trying to fill many of their entry level roles. And so that's what we're seeing as well. We really want to be able to be that resource for institutions, for faculty to be able to fill those roles and not have it be so theory heavy, but to make sure that there is also that practical hands-on application that's going on as well. Laura?
yeah, I mean, I think the shift to student-centered learning has been widely discussed in learning theory circles. And if you look at the history of academic learning theory, be it constructivism and Piaget, be it the zone of proximal learning and, you know, Vygotsky and Bruner, the different national interpretations with what Singapore has done with its maths, with what Japan has done with its implementation of math curriculum. Learning theory has always informed these things. A learning theory post-pandemic is an even more encompassing topic. I think before it was people with a passionate interest in learning pedagogy were interested in this. Now everybody has been touched by new working models and new learning models in their day-to-day, be it their Zoom communication through to their online learning. Universally, the pandemic has meant people have had to be very adaptable. And I think this is the acceleration to how learning theory now implies. How do you do the zone of proximal development online in a lab with a more knowledgeable other provided guided instruction? That's very much in line with the principles of Coursera Labs. So it's an interesting space. I'm very passionate about it, could talk about it for a long time, probably bore most people in the room, so I won't. But I think you're spot on with your comment.
You can come back to it later if you have time. This one is from Robert Vasile, who's obviously a very concerned faculty member. His question is, are faculty becoming obsolete? Students can get an AWS and Coursera and get a bunch of certificates, acquire the skills they need, and run with it. And a follow on to that, you might want to listen to this as well. What value do faculty from the big universities bring to this brave new world? Students come to me saying they completed the Google Tech Support Certificate and they basically have the skills to teach in a 2-year program. Comments from both of you? Robert, you intriguing comments from you, Robert.
My personal opinion is the value of faculty cannot be underestimated. The dedication to craft, the discipline of vigorous academic endeavor, the passion that makes somebody dedicate their time and PhD to go so deep. There's certain skills that are only nurtured in that environment. This is my personal opinion. Only nurtured in that environment. The way that people source material and, you know, they don't just give opinions, but they reference and they counter source and they create context and different perspectives, critical evaluation. All of these things are fundamentally important to every aspect of society. So no, the role of faculty or the role of university, in my opinion, is not being replaced. But like all industries, it has to modernize, it has to serve the needs of communities, nations, colleagues, learners, everybody, because it's such an important institution within the world and human progress. So for me, it's about adaptation, not extinction, if that's the correct answer to what you said.
And I agree wholeheartedly with what you just said as well, Lauren. I mean, faculty cannot be replaced. I think that it is something that, you know, definitely needs to be adapted to the times. I think faculty just need to understand that as technology is moving, as things are changing, that they also just need to understand different ways of teaching, right? We have to meet students and learners where they are, and that is very different than where I was as a student, right? And where students will be in 30 years. So as students change, as learners change, as technology changes, we then also need to understand how to make changes as educators, you know, as institutions, how we meet students where they are, because how we learned even 10, 15 years ago is not how we're learning now, and it will be not the way that we're going to learn in the next 10, 15 years. So faculty are definitely needed. We definitely need institutions. We just need to work together. You know, as we talked about that global ecosystem, just need to work together how we can present the best to learners and students as much as possible.
Yeah, absolutely. And we've seen the data as much as I value and what I said about the role of faculty, I 100% stand by. The data tells a story that the resistance to kind of embracing adaptation and working on those ecosystem solutions is coming out in the data. And I don't want to underplay the risk to institutions that just try to go it alone or just try to preserve the status quo. I think that's preserving elements of the status quo is okay, but being entirely resistant to the data on student expectations and the return on investment they're seeking would be naive.
Okay, follow-on question from Dennis. Cloud computing is often taught to students as a course or a module, but for it to be developed as a study program, such as cloud engineering, there need to develop a curriculum that spans the entire duration of 3 to 4 years, and lack of such a curriculum could still be a hurdle to acquiring these skills. What are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, can you hear me, Aisha?
Yeah, we can
I
hear
don't
you.
know if, yeah, you can hear me.
Yeah.
So
yeah, so I'll jump in. Yeah, definitely.
Go ahead, Aisha.
I think we lost Aisha's voice.
Oh, I think maybe we were having a little disconnect because I thought you were. Can you all hear me?
It's breaking for a little bit. How about I'll take the first part as we recover yours. Just the sheer range of content and sheer speed of which new content can be adjusted based on data, based on feedback, based on insight, based on trends, gives that agility. So for example, we have curations team, we have skills transformation consultants. For my region, it's Dr. Samuel Farah, who adds tremendous value to the engagements with our partners and looks at course matching in terms of what is it you want to achieve, what's the learning outcome you want for the student, what teaching hours would be provided, and there's content recommendations. And as the platform evolves, I think you can be even more reassured that the agility over the life cycle and the lifetime value of a degree program can still be maximized through these kind of cooperations.
Can you all hear me now?
Yep.
Yeah.
All right, wonderful. So just as Lauren mentioned as well, we work with our curriculum developers to really customize, you know, what it is that you're doing within your course in your program to really help maximize as much as you can really get out of it and be able to provide for students. So we want to be able to work with you to do that, you know, as much as we can within your course, but also, you know, within that kind of lifespan of that 4-year degree. And even, you know, when it comes to community colleges as well, to be able to see how we can work to customize a curriculum that fits, right? It does take time, but there are also additional courses, you know, that I mentioned that students can also go and get on their own as like a supplement, right? So there are courses online through Educate where they can get those additional courses to really help, you know, that extended period of the cloud engineering and cloud curriculum that is needed. So we want to be able to help them to understand, but there are different opportunities for them to get that through, you know, if we take them through, you know, thinking about how someone actually places an order within Amazon.com, right? So that first placing an order all the way until you actually receive your package, you know, we talk about cloud computing and how computer scientists are used and needed. And so sometimes you can be able to put a lot into using some of those examples, using videos and different modules to get students to be able to understand that. And so sometimes it doesn't necessarily need to be something as long as you think. We can, you know, customize it to fit whatever your requirements are.
And like the average student, some may well say, I want to be a cloud architect, and they may know right up front that this is their final end career goal. And there are others who may have a plethora of interest and not exactly sure what their ideal career is from the beginning of their degree. But the flexibility within this agile curriculum that we're talking about, having these applied learning tracks, it can be a bit daunting for a faculty to think, well, if I open up all of these software options, how am I going to grade all my students? But actually the way it works is that through the certifications and through the micro-credentials, they are already able to demonstrate that they've acquired certain skills and the application of those skills. And then by retention of the summative assessment by the faculty, you can structure those not necessarily to assess the technical knowledge that they've gained, but the application of that in a classic academic context. So for example, a comparative essay, a reflective journal, comparing the use in your local context. So it isn't about like, oh, we're opening up curriculum to so much, this will be an administrative or assessment nightmare. How am I going to grade and evaluate everything? It's about using the infrastructure that now exists to give them those skills, and then you can still preserve the academic quality of your programs.
Okay, I'm going to read out a couple of comments. You may not want to need to respond to them. One of them says, I'm an AWS accredited instructor. It's the best platform. I'm the only Asian having 600 plus international certification through Coursera and AWS. I endorse the concept of building skills instead of theory and all PPTs. The next comment, similar, is recently I became an IBM cloud instructor. Is there any other resources to become an AWS certified Devop associate at Devops engineer certifications?
So we do, I'll jump in there. So we do definitely have certifications, you know, even just, you know, kind of starting off at the foundation level with our cloud practitioner certification, and then, you know, next is solutions architect, and then they go up. So within those roles, we also have within our programs opportunities for when you have these certifications to become instructors, right? Instructors in our education programs that you can actually deliver and help with the curriculum. So please feel free to connect with me, and also look on the training and certification website where you can get additional information about becoming an instructor and getting additional AWS certifications.
I'm pleased to see all this chat engagement, because when I look at my chat, I can't see anything, but I'm aware there are 100 attendees. Yes. And I wanted to know where people were, what they were saying, but so thank you for relaying this back to us. A conversation.
You having to read the small print, Lauren and Aisha. So great. So this is one about about the cost of the AWS Academy, the pricing models, and sometimes it's quite inconvenient for education institutions because accounts without usage limits that can generate unpayable fees due to student mistakes, etc., etc. So just a comment. I don't know if you want to address that at all.
Well, I'll just say quickly that, one of the things we definitely want to be able to work with institutions, and, all institutions are not the same, right? So just as we look to work with you in terms of customizing curriculum, we want to really be able to understand your needs, what it is that you're looking for, so we can work with you and be able to really provide the best curriculum and service that we can. So there isn't one size that fits all. And, we can definitely look to see about your specific, institution and how we can really help and work with you.
Okay. So I think I'm going to stop right there because some of the questions are a little more repetitive. And so Hans, I'm going to give this back to you and see if you want to have some interaction for the next 5 minutes with the.
Thank you very much, Krishna. I tell you, Aisha and Lauren, this has been one of the most inspirational presentations that have been part of our global webinar series that Krishna, Aliki, and I are facilitating for the last few years. You're inspiring, and the seed that I want to plant, Aisha, I'm privileged to work with Coursera and have a wonderful colleague, Stephanie Wu, who is representing you in the IFES GDC community. But I also want to explore with you and HWS to work with IFES and GDC. Again, I'll follow up on that per se. Let me just make a couple of comments. And Krishna, at the end of my comments, I want to ask you to make just a couple of comments of our Brent and Felder series per se. But let me just share, because I know we have many members of the IFES GDC community, of which Coursera is part of. I'm privileged to be working with our host and as co-host of our global conference in Cape Town this November. And we play very strong emphasis, importance of engagement, not only of professors, not only of corporate colleagues and deans, and even government leaders, but students. The engagement of students, and what we are working on diligently with close friends and colleagues in Africa, of course, when the United States and Europe, and for students in Africa to be connected with students from other continents of the world in person, and vice versa per se. So that's a very important vision commitment that we in the three organizations, IFES, GDC, and IUCE, working in close partnership with Krishna. I just wanted to mention this to you very much. Another very important dimension is what we've been developing the last 3+ years is the GDC Industry Forum. We bring academic leaders like deans and higher together with corporate leaders. And we have a series of webinars, and we'll have a half-day event in Cape Town that will bring corporate colleagues together with the deans. And I'm already in discussions with friends to have it in China. And I hope with all the COVID reality and all that, we will have our industry forum next year with SASTEC in China. I just wanted to let you be aware of that. The other thing, we are continuing to make wonderful progress and in contact with, as you know, we started something called Rising to the Top, books written by engineering leaders throughout the world. And we already have several editions focusing on India, on Africa, on the globe, and now working on the MENA Arab world and also Southeast Asia. We're a little bit, because of COVID and all that, delayed in publishing it. We hope to do it early next year. But we'll have a space to bring engineering leaders, women leaders together to reflect on the different complexities and roles. I just wanted to share that with you. I think we certainly, several of the conferences that I'm deeply engaged in working with EGIP in Vienna coming up, my dear friend and brother Krishna hosting in the India conference in Mysore, India in January per se. So let me just stop in here, and Krishna, if you could just make a couple.
Sure. I will just make a pitch for the series that we're having starting in a couple of weeks on teaching and learning, and I could see that Lauren was quite animated when we talked about the methodology, pedagogy, and the theories of teaching and learning. And this is something that I think the teaching and teaching community all over the world is missing out on, because we become teachers without ever having taken a course on how to teach. And so you know, we don't focus on the learning part of it. And I think the world is changing, and one of the two gurus of ours, global gurus, are Richard Felder from North Carolina and his partner Rebecca Brent. Some of you might have heard of them, two of them. So they will be leading off a series that we're going to offer through IFES, GDC, and IUCE called the Brent Felder Webinar Series on Effective Teaching and Learning, starting in 2 weeks. The first one by Brent and Felder will be the first one. After that, every 2 months, they'll be from, with one of the distinguished people from different parts of the world, including Australia and Argentina and South Africa and Portugal. And so for the next 2 years, you know, once every 2 months, you'll get the opportunity to participate in these webinars, and also you know, start becoming part of a community of practice that we will be you know, supporting through an LMS on Canvas. So that's all I have to say. And so anything else you want to add, Lauren and Aisha, before we say goodbye to everybody?
Well, I'd like to thank Aisha for being such a great conversational partner. I really thoroughly enjoyed speaking with you, and to all of the 100+ attendees as well. Thank you for joining us. And Hans, Krishna, thank you for hosting us, and shout out to Hyung as well for supporting me through the preparations for this.
Thank you, Lauren. It's been a pleasure speaking with you as well. I look forward to staying in contact, and thank you for Hans and Krishna for putting this together. And, you know, just a final thought, you know, as we think about preparing, you know, future engineers and looking at cloud technology, you know, I can't leave without saying that, you know, we need to also continue to reach back even further, right, through the online platforms and the curriculum that we have, to make sure that, you know, we're going down to the K-12 level as well, to make sure that they're really getting introduced to these topics and really preparing them as well. So that's also included. And I know that there are definitely courses within Coursera where students can do that as well. So I just wanted to make a note of that. But thank you all for having me.
Okay, on that note, everybody, thank you. Be happy, be peaceful, be healthy. Take care,
Bye-bye.
everybody.
Let's stay in touch. Bye-bye, my friends.
Yes,
Thank you.
definitely.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.